The days she pressed her trembling hands on a bleeding stranger. She had no idea she wasn't just saving a billionaire. She was saving the man destined to rewrite her granddaughter's life. Hey family, before we dive in, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Your support helps us tell more powerful stories that touch lives. Thank you. The alley behind Morrison Street smelled of rain and refuse, but Eleanor Chen had long stopped noticing. At 84, living in a rusted camper van parked between abandoned warehouses, she'd learned to find dignity in small things. A bar of soap that lasted the month, a blanket without holes, her granddaughter's smile. Tonight, that smile was absent. Maya sat cross-legged on the thin mattress, her 23-year-old face drawn with worry as she counted their remaining bills. "Grandma, we have $42 until next week." Eleanor squeezed her hand. "We've survived on less, little bird." The gunshot cracked through the night like lightning. Maya jerked upright. What was that? Eleanor was already moving, her aged body remembering reflexes from 40 years of emergency nursing. She grabbed the battered medical kit she'd salvaged from a clinic dumpster, the one possession that linked her to who she used to be, Dr. Eleanor Chen, chief of surgery at Metropolitan Hospital. A lifetime ago. "Stay here," she commanded. But Maya was already pulling on her shoes. They found him 30 feet from their van, crumpled against a dumpster. Blood pooled beneath him, black in the dim streetlight. He was young, maybe 30, wearing a torn dress shirt that had once been expensive. His face was pale as death, eyes closed, breathing shallow. "He's gone," Maya whispered. "Grandma, that's too much blood." Eleanor knelt beside him, her knees protesting. Her fingers found his throat, weak, but there, a pulse. Not yet, he isn't. She tore open his shirt. The bullet wound was high on the left chest, dangerously close to the subclavian artery. If it had nicked that vessel, he had minutes. She'd seen this exact injury dozens of times in her career, knew precisely what to do. But that was when she had an operating room. Now she had a first aid kit and a flashlight. "Maya, hold the light steady. Don't shake." Her granddaughter obeyed without question. The same way she had for the past 3 years, ever since Eleanor had faked her own death to escape the Thornton family. Eleanor's hands moved with practiced efficiency, packing the wound, applying pressure. The man groaned, consciousness flickering. She caught a glimpse of his face in the light. Strong features, a scar above his left eyebrow, dark hair matted with sweat and blood. "Sir, can you hear me? I'm a nurse, you've been shot." His eyes opened, storm grey, surprisingly focused despite the trauma. They fixed on her face with an intensity that made her pause. "Don't. Hospital," he rasped. "They'll find me." Eleanor understood that kind of fear. "Then we do this here. Maya, get the van, now." They dragged him the 30 feet, leaving a trail of blood on the concrete. Eleanor ignored the screaming pain in her back, the way her heart hammered against her ribs. She'd sworn 3 years ago never to use her skills for the wealthy again. Not after what the Thorntons had done. This man's clothes, even torn and bloody, screamed money. But dying was dying, and she'd taken an oath once, even if the world had forced her to break it. Inside the cramped van, under a single battery-powered lamp, Eleanor worked. She cleaned the wound, extracted fragments, sutured with thread from their sewing kit and a sterilized needle. Her fingers trembled, age and lack of proper equipment. But the muscle memory held. Maya handed her supplies without being asked, anticipating each need. Eleanor had trained her well over these 3 years, teaching her everything about medicine during their long, quiet nights. The girl had learned fast, inheriting Eleanor's gift for healing. 2 hours later, the stranger lay on their only mattress, his breathing steadier, his color returning. Eleanor had hung an IV bag from a hook in the ceiling, saline she'd traded for by treating their homeless neighbor's infected foot. "He'll live," Eleanor said, collapsing onto a folding chair. Every bone in her body ached. "If infection doesn't take him..." Maya stared at the unconscious man. "Who is he? Why would someone shoot him?" "Someone who wanted him dead." Eleanor studied his face. There was something about him, not just the obvious wealth, but a quality of command, even in unconsciousness. A man used to power. "We'll ask him when he wakes. If he wakes." "Should we call the police?" "No." Eleanor's voice was sharp. She'd learned that lesson. The powerful had long arms, and the law bent for them. "We keep this quiet, help him heal, send him on his way." Maya's expression was troubled, but she nodded. She'd learned not to question her grandmother's paranoia. She'd been there. After all, the day Eleanor had received the phone call from her son-in-law, Michael Thornton, his voice cold as ice, explaining that either Eleanor disappeared completely or he'd ensure Maya never saw her 18th birthday. The Thornton family didn't make empty threats. Eleanor had vanished the next day, and Maya had followed 2 years later when she'd turned 21 and could escape their suffocating control. Together, they'd built this small, hidden life. The stranger stirred, mumbling something incoherent. Eleanor checked his pulse again, stronger now. Against all odds, he'd survive. "Get some rest," she told Maya. "I'll watch him." But Maya had already curled up in the corner, her eyes on the wounded man's face with an expression Eleanor couldn't quite read. Curiosity? Concern? Something else? Eleanor pushed the thought away. This man would recover and leave. They couldn't afford complications. Their survival depended on staying invisible, untangled from the world of wealth and power. The man's eyes flickered open briefly, finding Eleanor's in the dim light. "Thank you," he whispered, before darkness claimed him again. 2 words, but Eleanor heard the depth behind them. The voice of someone who understood the value of a life saved. She turned away, checking her supplies. In 3 days, maybe 4, he'd be stable enough to leave. Then their lives would return to normal. She had no idea that normal had just ended forever. The fever came on the 2nd day. Eleanor had expected it. Gunshot wounds invited infection, like honey drew flies. But that didn't make it less frightening in their cramped van with its limited supplies. The stranger's temperature spiked to 103, his body burning beneath the thin blanket, delirious mutterings spilling from his lips. "Alexander, the shipment, betrayal, trust no one." Maya pressed a cool cloth to his forehead, her face etched with worry. "Grandma, he's getting worse." Eleanor crushed antibiotics she'd bartered for last month. Outdated pills from a sympathetic pharmacy. Tech, who remembered her from the old days. She dissolved them in water, managed to get half the mixture down the stranger's throat before he turned his head away, lost in fever dreams. "We need real medicine," Maya said. "Hospital-grade antibiotics." B. Antibiotics. "We make do with what we have." Eleanor's voice was firm, but fear gnawed at her. She'd saved him from bleeding out, only to lose him to infection. The irony was bitter. For 3 days and nights, they battled the fever. Eleanor barely slept, monitoring his vitals, changing his bandages, forcing fluids and medication into him during his brief moments of semi-consciousness. Maya helped tirelessly, her hands gentle as she bathed his face, her voice soft as she murmured encouragements he couldn't hear. Eleanor noticed the way her granddaughter looked at him during those long hours, not just with concern, but with something softer, more dangerous. "Don't," Eleanor said quietly on the third night. When Maya was holding the stranger's hand, without seeming to realize it, Maya looked up, startled. "Don't what?" "Get attached. He's not for us, little bird." Eleanor kept her voice gentle. "Look at him. Even sick. You can see what he is. The calluses on his hands aren't from labor. They're from tennis, golf, sports the wealthy play. His teeth are too perfect. That watch he was wearing?" I recognized the brand. $50,000, minimum. "I'm not," Maya started, then stopped. Her cheeks colored. "I'm just worried about him." "I know." Eleanor touched her granddaughter's face. "But this man belongs to a world that destroyed ours. When he's well, he leaves. We don't ask questions, and we don't follow." Maya pulled her hand away from his. "I understand." But Eleanor saw the lie in her eyes, and her heart ached. Maya had inherited her grandmother's compassionate nature, her need to heal and help. But she'd also inherited something Eleanor had lost decades ago, the ability to hope, to believe in goodness, to see potential instead of threats. The fever broke on the fourth morning. Eleanor woke from a fitful doze, in her chair to find the stranger's eyes open clear for the first time. He was studying the van's interior, the medical supplies hanging in organizers, the neat stacks of books, the curtains Maya had sewn from fabric scraps to give them privacy. "You're in my home," Eleanor said, straightening. Her back screamed in protest. "Such as it is." He turned his head toward her, wincing at the movement. "You saved my life. The old woman from the alley." "Retired nurse. And yes." "How long?" "4 days." He tried to sit up, gasped, and fell back. The movement had torn something. Blood seeped through the fresh bandage. Eleanor moved quickly, pressing gauze to the wound. "Don't be stupid," she snapped. "I didn't spend 4 days keeping you alive so you could rip yourself open." "I need to make a call. My people, they'll think I'm dead." "Maybe you should be." Eleanor's voice was cold. "Someone shot you. Someone who knew where you'd be. That kind of precision speaks of inside knowledge." His grey eyes sharpened, studying her with new intensity. "You're more than just a nurse." "I was more than just a nurse. Now I'm an old woman who saves idiots from bleeding out in alleys." She secured the new bandage. "You can make your call when you're strong enough to walk out of here. Until then, you're my patient, and my patients follow my orders." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Yes, ma'am." The van door opened, and Maya climbed in, carrying their breakfast, coffee and rolls from the shelter 3 blocks away. She froze when she saw the stranger awake. "You're better," she breathed, and her face lit up in a way that made Eleanor's stomach clench. The stranger stared at Maya as if seeing sunlight after years in darkness. Even weakened, pale, bandaged, something shifted in his expression, a softening Eleanor recognized because she'd seen it once before, 40 years ago, when she'd met Maya's grandfather. "I'm better because of you," he said, his voice rough but genuine. "Both of you. I owe you my life." Maya set down the food, suddenly shy. "We couldn't let you die." "Many would have. Called the police or walked away." He paused. I'm Alexander. Maya, she smiled. And this is my grandmother, Eleanor. Eleanor noted what he didn't offer. No last name, no details. Smart or cautious or both. Alexander, once you're well enough, you'll need to leave. We can't have complications. Complications? His gaze moved between them, clearly reading the fear beneath Eleanor's words. You're hiding from something. Everyone on these streets is hiding from something, Eleanor said sharply. Your business is yours. Ours is ours. That's how we survive. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Fair enough. But when I leave, I'll make sure you're compensated. More than fairly. We don't want your money. The words came out harsher than Eleanor intended. We treated you because it was right, not for profit. Keep your wealth. We want nothing from you. Surprise flickered across his face, then something that might have been respect. Then I owe you a debt I can't repay. You owe us nothing, except to heal and leave. That's all. Maya handed him coffee, their fingers brushing. Eleanor saw it, the small electric moment, the way Maya's breath caught, the way Alexander's eyes lingered on her face. How old are you? He asked softly. 23. I'm 31. He said it like a confession, like the 8 years mattered. You should be in college, not living in a van taking care of gunshot victims. Maya's expression shuttered. Life doesn't always go the way we plan. No, Alexander agreed quietly. It doesn't. Over the following days, Eleanor watched helplessly as the inevitable unfolded. Alexander grew stronger, able to sit up, to eat properly, to move around the cramped space. And with each day, the connection between him and Maya deepened. They talked during the long afternoons while Eleanor was out. She could see it in their easy conversation. When she returned, the way they fell silent too quickly, Maya laughed more than she had in months. Alexander's eyes followed her granddaughter everywhere. This has to stop, Eleanor told Maya one evening when Alexander was sleeping. You're falling for him. I'm not. Don't lie to me, little bird. I see it. And I see him seeing you. Eleanor gripped her granddaughter's hands. He's from their world, the world that took everything from us. He's rich, powerful, exactly the kind of man who destroys people like us. He's not like that, Maya protested. You don't know him. Neither do you. He's been here a week. You know nothing about him except he got shot and someone wants him dead. Eleanor's voice cracked. Please, Maya. Please protect yourself. Tears welled in Maya's eyes. What if he's different? What if not all wealthy people are like the Thorntons? They're all the same when it matters. Eleanor pulled her granddaughter close. They take what they want, and they discard what they don't need. We're a curiosity to him right now. A debt. But when he goes back to his real life, we'll disappear from his memory like morning mist. Maya didn't answer, but she didn't pull away either, and Eleanor knew with a sinking certainty that her warnings had come too late. The heart, once given, was not easily reclaimed. Alexander could walk without stumbling by the 10th day. Eleanor watched him pace the narrow space of the van like a caged wolf, his strength returning with remarkable speed. Good genetics, she thought bitterly. The wealthy even healed better. I need to make that call now, he said, turning to face her. My people will be searching. If they think I'm dead, they'll retaliate. Innocent people could get hurt. Eleanor crossed her arms. There's a payphone 2 blocks east. Maya can show you. Grandma, he's still weak, Maya started. He's strong enough. Eleanor's tone brooked no argument. The sooner he contacts his people, the sooner he leaves. Alexander's jaw tightened, but he nodded. You're right. I've imposed long enough. 20 minutes later, Eleanor sat alone in the van, her hands trembling as she cleaned medical supplies. She should feel relieved. He'd make his call, his people would come for him, and life would return to normal, safe, quiet, hidden. So why did it feel like she was tearing her granddaughter's heart out? The van door burst open. Maya stumbled in, her face flushed, eyes bright with unshed tears. What happened? Eleanor demanded, standing. Nothing. Everything. Maya pressed her hands to her face. He made his call. Someone's coming for him tomorrow morning. Good. Is it? Maya's voice broke. Is it good, Grandma? Because it doesn't feel good. It feels like losing something I didn't know I needed. Eleanor pulled her close. Oh, little bird, this is why I warned you. He asked me to come with him. The words tumbled out in a rush. To his world. He said he could protect us, give us a real life again. He said... She stopped, swallowing hard. He said he's falling in love with me. Ice flooded Eleanor's veins. And you told him no. Maya pulled back, her eyes meeting her grandmother's. I told him I needed to think. To talk to you. There's nothing to think about. Eleanor's voice was sharp with panic. You don't know him, Maya. You don't know what he's capable of, what his world would do to you. To us. He told me his name. His full name. Maya took a shaky breath. Alexander Steele. He owns Steel Industries, international shipping, technology, real estate. He's worth billions, Grandma. Billions. The name hit Eleanor like a physical blow. Steel Industries. She'd heard that name in her former life, seen it in newspapers, one of the most powerful conglomerates in the country, with connections to everything from government contracts to global trade. Then you definitely told him no, Eleanor said flatly. Men like that don't love women like us. They collect them, use them, discard them when convenient. You don't know him. I know his type. Eleanor's voice rose. I married into that world, remember? Your grandfather's family seemed wonderful until they weren't. Until they decided I wasn't good enough, that my daughter wasn't good enough. The Thorntons smiled and schemed and took everything that mattered. Alexander isn't them. How do you know? Eleanor gripped Maya's shoulders. How can you possibly know after 10 days? Maya's eyes shone, with tears and something fiercer, determination. Because he told me everything. About the shooting, about why someone wants him dead. He trusted me with the truth. Despite herself, Eleanor asked, what truth? His board of directors is trying to overthrow him. He discovered they've been smuggling weapons through his shipping lines, using his company for illegal arms deals. When he threatened to expose them, they hired someone to kill him. Maya's words came faster. He barely escaped. That's why he can't go to a hospital, can't trust anyone. His own cousin is part of the conspiracy. Eleanor's mind raced. If it was true, it explained the precision of the attack, his paranoia, his reluctance to contact authorities. But it also meant he was caught in something deadly, exactly the kind of danger they'd spent 3 years avoiding. All the more reason to stay away, Eleanor said. His war isn't ours. He's alone, Grandma. Everyone he trusted has betrayed him. His parents are dead. He has no one. He has money, power, resources we can't imagine. But no one who sees him as human. Maya's voice softened. No one who cared whether he lived or died until us, until we pulled him out of that alley. Eleanor saw the trap closing. Maya had already made her choice. Her heart had made it days ago. Now she was just seeking permission. If you go with him, Eleanor said quietly. You'll enter his world, his war. The people who want him dead won't hesitate to hurt you to get to him. Is that what you want? To trade one danger for another? I want to live, Grandma. Really live. Not just survive. Maya's hands found Eleanor's. I want to finish college. To become a real nurse, like you were. To help people with proper medicine and equipment, not expired pills and prayer. Alexander can give me that. Give us that. At what cost? I don't know, Maya admitted. But I know the cost of staying here. Watching you grow weaker every month, knowing we're one bad winter from dying in this van. Is that really safer? The words cut, because they were true. Eleanor was 84. Her body was failing. Last winter she'd nearly died from pneumonia, saved only by antibiotics Maya had stolen from a pharmacy. How many winters did she have left? You love him, Eleanor said, not a question. Maya nodded, tears finally spilling over. I know it's fast, I know it's crazy, but yes, I love him. Eleanor closed her eyes. When had her granddaughter, grown from the frightened 20-year-old who'd fled the Thorntons, into this brave young woman willing to risk everything for love? If we do this, Eleanor said slowly, we need conditions, protection, not just money, real security, legal protection. I won't watch you become some billionaire's mistress. He hides away. Hope blazed in Maya's face. You'll consider it? I'll talk to him. Eleanor's voice was steel. If he wants you, he'll answer to me first. And if I don't like what I hear, we disappear. Tonight. He'll never find us. He won't disappoint you, Maya breathed. I promise. Eleanor wasn't sure who Maya was trying to convince, her or herself. Alexander returned an hour later. His face was grim, shoulders tight with tension. Whatever conversation he'd had on that payphone hadn't gone well. We need to talk, Eleanor said. Outside, alone. He glanced at Maya, who nodded encouragingly, then followed Eleanor into the alley. The evening air was cool, carrying the scent of rain. In the distance, sirens wailed, the soundtrack of their neighborhood. Maya told you, Alexander said. It wasn't a question. She told me you asked her to leave with you, to enter your world. Eleanor faced him squarely. So now you'll tell me why I shouldn't take her and disappear tonight. His grey eyes met hers without flinching. Because I love her. Because I'll protect her with everything I have. Because she deserves better than dying in a van in an alley. Pretty words. I've heard prettier from worse men. I'm sure you have. He leaned against the wall, favouring his healing wound. Maya told me about the Thorntons, about what they did to force you into hiding, about the threats against her life. Eleanor stiffened. She had no right. She had every right. If I'm asking her to trust me, I need to know what we're facing. His voice was calm, matter of fact. The Thorntons are powerful, but their reach is limited. I can protect her from them. I can protect both of you. With what? Money? Your enemies already tried to kill you once. And I'm going to eliminate them. All of them. Something cold entered his expression. Something that reminded Eleanor he wasn't just a wounded man they'd saved, but someone who commanded billions, who'd built an empire. I have resources they don't know about. People loyal to me, not the board. Within a month, I'll have secured my position and removed every threat. A month? Eleanor laughed bitterly. You think you can reshape your entire world in a month? I've done it in less. He straightened, and despite his injuries, despite his borrowed clothes, he suddenly looked every inch the billionaire he was. I built steel industries from near bankruptcy when I was 25. I turned it into a global power by 30. I don't lose, Eleanor. Not when it matters. And Maya matters. More than anything else in my life. The raw honesty in his voice made Eleanor's breath catch. I wasn't looking for this. For her. I was focused on business, on expansion, on beating my enemies. Then I woke up in your van, and she was there with her gentle hands and fierce eyes, and suddenly nothing else mattered as much. Eleanor wanted to resist, to find the lie, the manipulation. But she'd spent 40 years reading people, and what she saw in Alexander Steele's face was terrifyingly genuine. She's 23, Eleanor said. Young, inexperienced. She's lived in poverty for 3 years and in a gilded cage before that. She doesn't know what real choice looks like. Then I'll give her time, space, whatever she needs. He moved closer. But I won't lie to you. I want her in my life. I want both of you safe, comfortable, protected. Let me fix this. Let me make my world secure enough for her to enter it. And if you fail, if your enemies kill you, then I've arranged for you both to receive protection anyway. My lawyer has sealed instructions. If anything happens to me, you'll be relocated, with new identities and enough money to live comfortably. He pulled a card from his pocket. This is his contact information. He doesn't know your names or location yet, but he will once I make one call. Eleanor took the card, studying it. The name meant nothing to her, but the firm was prestigious. You've thought this through. I think everything through. It's why I'm still alive. Barely. A slight smile touched his lips. Fair point. The smile faded. I know what I'm asking. I know the risk. But Maya deserves a chance at the life she should have had. Education, career, freedom. And I can give her that. Will you let me try? Eleanor looked at this man her granddaughter loved, this stranger who'd crashed into their lives with blood and bullets and impossible promises. Every instinct screamed danger. But Maya's words echoed in her mind. I want to live, not just survive. How could she deny her granddaughter that chance, no matter how terrifying? 1 month, Eleanor said finally. You have 1 month to secure your position. We stay here, stay hidden. If at the end of that month you've made your world safe, we'll discuss next steps. But if anything happens to you, if any threat touches Maya, the deal ends. We disappear, and you never look for us. Agreed? Alexander extended his hand. Agreed. Eleanor shook it, feeling the strength in his grip. The calluses Maya had noticed, maybe not from labor, but from someone who fought his own battles. One more thing, Eleanor said, not releasing his hand. You hurt her, deliberately, carelessly, through neglect or cruelty, and I will find a way to destroy you. I was chief of surgery at Metropolitan Hospital for 20 years. I know 100 ways to end a life that look like accidents. Do you understand me? His eyes widened slightly. Surprise, then respect. I understand. And I promise you won't need to use any of them. Eleanor released his hand and turned toward the van. At the door, she paused. She's waiting to hear my answer. Don't make me regret giving you one she'll want to hear. Inside, Maya sat on the mattress, her hands clasped tightly, her face anxious. She looked up when Eleanor entered. We have a month, Eleanor said. He has a month to prove himself, to make his world safe. Then we decide. Maya flew across the van, wrapping Eleanor in a fierce hug. Thank you. Thank you, Grandma. You won't regret this. But as Eleanor held her granddaughter, watching through the small window, as Alexander made another call on his phone, his face set with determination, she wondered if regret was already inevitable. They'd stepped onto a path with no turning back. Now they could only move forward and pray it didn't lead to destruction. Alexander's people arrived at dawn in a black SUV with tinted windows. Eleanor watched from the van's curtained window as two men in expensive suits emerged, their eyes scanning the alley with professional wariness. Security. The kind that cost more per day than she and Maya spent in a month. "Stay inside," Eleanor told Maya, who was hovering near the door, her face pale. "But I should say goodbye." "Let him come to you. If he truly cares, he'll make the effort." As if summoned by her words, Alexander appeared from where he'd been waiting, by the dumpster. Their agreed-upon meeting spot to keep the van's location vague. He spoke briefly with his men, then turned and walked back toward them. Eleanor opened the door before he could knock. 5 minutes, she said curtly. He nodded, climbing into the cramped space. He'd changed into clothes his people had brought. A fresh shirt, dark slacks, shoes that probably cost more than their van. The transformation was startling. Gone was the vulnerable, wounded man. In his place stood someone who commanded rooms and boardrooms alike. But his eyes, when they found Maya, remained soft. "I have to go," he said quietly. "But I'll be back. 1 month, like we agreed." Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. Eleanor saw her granddaughter's hands trembling and felt a fierce protectiveness surge through her. "Before you leave," Eleanor said, pulling a small notebook from her pocket. She'd been up all night writing. "These are the antibiotics you'll need to finish the course. The wound care instructions, signs of infection to watch for. You're healing well, but you're not healed." Alexander took the notebook, his fingers brushing Eleanor's. "Thank you. For everything. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you come back alive and victorious." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Deal." He turned to Maya. "Walk me out?" Eleanor started to protest, then stopped. She couldn't protect Maya from everything, including her own choices. "Go. But stay where I can see you." They stepped out into the grey dawn. Through the window, Eleanor watched them stand close together, not quite touching. Alexander said something that made Maya's eyes fill with tears. Then he pulled a phone from his pocket, new, expensive, and pressed it into her hands. Eleanor tensed. A phone meant tracking, meant connection, meant risk. But Maya shook her head, trying to give it back. Good girl, Eleanor thought. Alexander's response was insistent. He gestured, explained something. Maya, finally, reluctantly, accepted the phone. He showed her something on the screen. How to use it, perhaps. Then he did something Eleanor didn't expect. He removed the battery, showed Maya the SIM card, demonstrated how to reassemble it. A burner phone. Untraceable. Smart. Finally, Alexander reached out and touched Maya's face. Gentle, reverent. Even from a distance, Eleanor could see the longing in both their expressions. Then he stepped back, maintaining the distance Maya needed, the respect she deserved. He turned and walked to the SUV without looking back. The discipline of that, not turning for one last glance, told Eleanor more about his character than words could. He was a man who kept his promises, even painful ones. The SUV pulled away, disappearing into the morning traffic. Maya stood alone in the alley for a long moment before returning to the van. Her eyes were red but dry. She held the phone like a lifeline. He said not to turn it on unless it's an emergency or he calls first, Maya said quietly. He said his people might be monitoring communications, looking for him. This number is secure, but any phone can be traced if someone's determined enough. Eleanor nodded. He's being careful. That's good. He said, Maya's voice caught. He said the next time we see each other, he'll have made the world safe for us. That he'll come back in grand style to bring us home. That's the word he used, home. And if he doesn't come back? Maya's hand closed around the phone. Then I'll know I was right to have faith in him, because it will mean he died trying. The bleak acceptance in her granddaughter's voice chilled Eleanor. When had Maya become someone who could speak of death and faith in the same breath? Come inside, Eleanor said gently. You're freezing. The first week crawled by like a wounded animal. Maya checked the phone obsessively, even though it remained dark and silent. She tried to maintain their normal routine, visiting the shelter for meals, helping Eleanor treat their neighbors' ailments, reading in the evenings, but her mind was clearly elsewhere. Eleanor watched her granddaughter fade, growing quieter, more withdrawn. Love, she thought bitterly, was a disease without cure. On the 8th day, the phone rang. Maya nearly dropped it in her haste to answer. Alexander? Eleanor couldn't hear his response, but she saw Maya's face transform. Fear giving way to relief, relief giving way to joy. You're okay? You're really okay? Maya pressed her hand to her mouth. No, we're fine, we're safe. Grandma's kept us invisible, like always. She listened for a long moment, her expression shifting through a dozen emotions. I miss you too, she whispered finally. So much it hurts. More listening. Then, 2 weeks? You think you'll have everything handled in 2 weeks? Eleanor's eyebrows rose. Half the promised time. Either Alexander Steele was remarkably efficient or dangerously overconfident. Be careful, Maya said urgently. Please, Alexander, don't take unnecessary risks. I can wait. I'll wait as long as it takes. A pause. Yes, I promise. We won't go anywhere. She ended the call, staring at the phone with wonder. He's moving faster than expected. His loyal people rallied, more than he anticipated. He's building a case against the board members, gathering evidence of their crimes. He said, she looked up at Eleanor, he said when he's done, they won't just lose their positions. They'll lose everything. Revenge is a dangerous motivation, Eleanor warned. Not revenge, justice. Maya's eyes were fierce. They tried to kill him, Grandma. They were willing to murder him for profit. They deserve what's coming. Eleanor studied her granddaughter, seeing the change these weeks had wrought. The girl who'd fled the Thorntons 3 years ago had been soft, frightened, beaten down by manipulation and threats. This young woman was harder, more certain. Love had forged her into something stronger, or perhaps, Eleanor thought uncomfortably, something more ruthless. The second week brought changes to their neighborhood. Eleanor noticed it first. New faces, too clean, too watchful. A man reading the same newspaper for 3 days straight at the corner. A woman who asked too many questions at the shelter. We're being watched, Eleanor told Maya tersely on the 13th day. Maya's face went pale. The Thorntons? Maybe. Or Alexander's enemies. Or just my paranoia. But Eleanor's instincts had kept them alive this long. We need to be ready to run. She began preparing, packing their essential belongings into 2 backpacks that could be grabbed in seconds. She mapped 3 different escape routes from the alley. She taught Maya the signals. 1 cough meant danger, 2 meant run, 3 meant separate, and meet at the pre-arranged location. On the 15th day, the phone rang again. Don't answer it, Eleanor said sharply. Not here, not now. Maya stared at the ringing phone, torn between obedience and desperation. It rang twice more, then fell silent. 5 minutes later, it rang again. "He's worried," Maya said. "If I don't answer." "If you answer and lead his enemies to us, worry will be the least of our problems." They compromised. Eleanor drove the van, coaxed to reluctant life after months of staying stationary, 3 miles to a different neighborhood. Only then did Maya call back. "I'm sorry," she said immediately when Alexander answered. "We couldn't talk before. Grandma thinks we're being watched." Eleanor couldn't hear Alexander's response, but she saw Maya's expression shift to alarm. "What? When?" Maya's hand gripped the phone tighter. No, we're okay. We moved. We're careful." She listened for several minutes, her face growing grimmer. "I understand," she said finally. "Yes, we'll be ready. Just hurry. Please hurry." She ended the call and turned to Eleanor. "The board discovered he's alive. They're trying to find where he's been hiding, and they're investigating everyone who might have helped him that night. Someone remembered seeing him in our alley before he disappeared." Eleanor's blood ran cold. "Then they know about us." "Maybe. He's not sure. But he's moving up the timeline. He said..." Maya swallowed hard. "He said he's forcing a confrontation with the board tomorrow. Public, legal. He's going to the authorities with everything he's gathered. But if it goes wrong, we run. He's sending someone to protect us. Tonight. Someone he trusts absolutely." Maya met her grandmother's eyes. "He said to trust this person, that they'll keep us safe until he can come himself." Eleanor felt the walls closing in, the careful life they'd built crumbling. They'd survived 3 years by trusting no one, depending on nothing but themselves. Now they were supposed to put their safety in the hands of a stranger. "We should leave," Eleanor said. "Now, before his person arrives, before his enemies find us. We disappear like we planned." "No," Maya's voice was firm. I promised I'd wait, that I'd trust him." "Your promises could get us killed, or his love could save us," Maya shot back. "Grandma, I know you're scared, I am too, but I'm more scared of spending the rest of my life running, always looking over my shoulder, never trusting anyone. Alexander is offering us a chance, maybe our only chance, to really be free." Eleanor wanted to argue, to insist, to grab Maya and drive until they reached a place where billionaires and their wars couldn't touch them. But looking at her granddaughter's face, she saw a truth she couldn't deny. Maya would never truly be free while living in fear. Sometimes the only way out was through. "Fine," Eleanor said quietly. "We wait for his person. We trust him, this one last time. But if anything feels wrong, anything at all, we run. Agreed?" "Agreed." They returned to the alley as darkness fell, the van coughing and wheezing into its usual spot. Eleanor kept watch while Maya pretended to read, both of them tense, waiting. At midnight, a soft knock came at the van door. 3 taps, then 2. A pattern Alexander must have arranged. Eleanor grabbed the kitchen knife she kept hidden in the cushions and nodded to Maya to open the door. A woman stood outside. Mid-40s, athletic build, eyes that missed nothing. She wore dark, practical clothing and moved with the efficiency of military training. "Eleanor Chen and Maya Chen?" Her voice was professionally neutral. "Who's asking?" Eleanor kept the knife visible. "My name is Sarah Moss. Alexander Steele sent me to ensure your safety." She held up her phone, showing a photo. Alexander, taken recently, holding today's newspaper, a proof of life and timing. "He said to tell you that the eagle flies at dawn, and the nest must be secure." Maya gasped softly. Those were words from their last conversation, private words she'd shared with Eleanor. No one else could know them. He also said, Sarah continued, her expression softening slightly, to tell Maya that he keeps his promises, all of them, and that she should wear something comfortable for traveling tomorrow, because where they're going, she'll want to be able to run through gardens. Tears sprang to Maya's eyes. The garden reference was from a story she told Alexander about her childhood, before the Thorntons, when her mother was alive, when they'd run through gardens together on summer evenings. Eleanor lowered the knife. "Come in," she said. Quickly, Sarah entered, and Eleanor saw the weapon concealed beneath her jacket. The radio on her belt, the coiled readiness of someone prepared for violence. "Tomorrow," Sarah said, settling into a position where she could watch both the door and the window. "Everything changes, for better or worse. My job is to make sure you both survive to see it." Eleanor sat beside Maya, taking her granddaughter's hand. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos. Inside their small van, 3 women waited for dawn, for Alexander Steele's grand confrontation, for the moment that would determine all their fates. The die was cast. Now they could only wait to see where it would fall. The emergency alert on Sarah's phone erupted at 5:47 a.m., shattering the tense silence. She read the message, her face going stone cold. "We need to move, now." Eleanor was already reaching for their packed bags. What happened? Alexander went to the federal prosecutor at 7 last night. By midnight, they had raided Steel Industries headquarters and arrested 4 board members. Sarah was throwing open the van door, scanning the alley. By 3 a.m., someone posted bail for Marcus Steele. Alexander's cousin. He's in the wind, and intelligence suggests he's coming for leverage. "Us," Maya breathed. "You." Sarah pulled her weapon. "There's a safe house 20 minutes away. We leave in 30 seconds. Eleanor grabbed Maya's arm, pulling her toward the door. They'd practiced this. They knew what to do. Then the first shot cracked through the morning air. Sarah shoved them back into the van as the rear window exploded. "Down! Stay down!" Eleanor threw herself over Maya, feeling her granddaughter's heart hammering against her own chest. More gunshots. A calculated spray meant to pin them inside. Through the shattered window, Eleanor glimpsed movement. 3 men, professional, closing in from multiple angles. Sarah returned fire, 2 precise shots that sent one attacker stumbling back. "The engine! Can this thing run?" "Barely," Eleanor gasped. "Make it work!" Eleanor scrambled to the driver's seat, hands shaking as she jammed the key into the ignition. The van coughed once, twice. "Come on," Maya whispered desperately. "Please, please." The engine caught. "Go," Sarah fired again, providing cover. Eleanor slammed the accelerator. The van lurched forward, 30 years old and groaning, but moving. Behind them, the attackers scattered, one diving clear, another raising his weapon. The windshield cracked, a bullet punching through where Eleanor's head had been a second before. Maya screamed. Sarah twisted, firing through the broken rear window with mechanical precision. They careened out of the alley into morning traffic. Horns blared. A taxi swerved, barely missing them. Eleanor's knuckles were white on the wheel, every instinct from her nursing days screaming at her to stop, to help, to not be the cause of chaos. But stopping meant dying. 2 vehicles following, Sarah reported, her voice eerily calm. Black sedan and a motorcycle. They're coordinated, professional. "Where do I go?" Eleanor demanded. East, toward the waterfront. Backup is en route, but we need to survive the next 8 minutes. 8 minutes. A lifetime when people were shooting at you. The sedan pulled alongside them. Eleanor saw the passenger window rolling down, saw the gun. "Turn, now!" Sarah shouted. Eleanor yanked the wheel right. The van tilted dangerously, 2 wheels nearly leaving the ground, then crashed back down as they shot down a side street. The sedan overshot, brakes squealing. But the motorcycle stayed with them. "He's got a clear shot at the driver," Sarah said. "When I say move, you duck. Maya drives." "I don't know how," Maya started. "You learn fast or we die. Choose." They hit a straight stretch. The motorcycle accelerated, pulling even with Eleanor's window. She could see the rider's face, young, cold, utterly devoid of mercy. "Now!" Sarah screamed. Eleanor dropped. Maya lunged forward, grabbing the wheel. The van swerved wildly as the gunshot meant for Eleanor's head punched through empty air and buried itself in the passenger seat. Sarah leaned out the broken window and fired twice. The motorcycle's front tire exploded. The rider went down in a screaming tangle of metal and asphalt. Maya was crying, somehow keeping the van moving forward, her hands small on the huge wheel. "You're doing great," Eleanor gasped, pushing herself up. "Just like the parking lot, remember? I taught you in that empty parking lot." "That was different. There weren't people trying to kill us." "Focus on the road. Nothing else matters." The sedan had recovered, closing fast. Sarah ejected her spent magazine, slammed in a fresh one. 4 minutes! We need 4 more minutes! The waterfront appeared ahead. Warehouses, shipping containers, the grey expanse of harbour water, empty at this early hour. No witnesses, no help. There, Sarah pointed to a gap between 2 warehouses. "Cut through. It'll buy us time." Maya jerked the van left. They scraped against a container, metal shrieking, then burst through into an open loading area and found 3 more men waiting. "Trap," Sarah said flatly. "They herded us here." The sedan blocked their retreat. The new attackers spread out, weapons raised. They had maybe 10 seconds before the shooting started. Eleanor's mind raced through impossible scenarios, each ending in blood and death. They couldn't outrun bullets in a van held together by rust and prayer. They couldn't outfight 6 armed professionals with Sarah's single weapon. They were going to die here. Then Maya grabbed the wheel and floored the accelerator. "What are you doing?" Eleanor shouted. "Something stupid." Maya aimed the van straight at the nearest attacker, her face set with terrifying determination. The man dove aside. Maya didn't slow. She sent the van smashing through a chain-link fence, through wooden pallets toward the edge of the dock. "Maya, stop!" Eleanor screamed. "Hold on to something!" The van hit the water. The impact was catastrophic. Eleanor was thrown forward against the dashboard. Maya's head cracked against the steering wheel. Sarah's weapon flew from her hand. Water began pouring in through every broken window, every rusted hole. "Out! Now!" Sarah was already moving, kicking out the remaining windshield glass. Eleanor grabbed Maya, who was dazed, bleeding from her forehead. Together, they fought through the flooding van, through the windshield opening, into the shockingly cold harbour water. Behind them, the van sank with surprising speed, 20 years of their life disappearing into murky depths. They surfaced, gasping. The dock was 30 feet away. Eleanor saw the attackers regrouping, arguing. They hadn't expected this. One was pointing, directing others to circle around. "We swim," Sarah said. "Under the dock. There's a boat launch 200 yards east." I can't swim that far, Eleanor gasped. She was already exhausted, her 84-year-old body screaming. Yes, you can. Maya grabbed her arm. We both can. Together. They swam. It was agony. Every stroke felt like it might be Eleanor's last. Her lungs burned. Her arms were lead. Maya stayed beside her, supporting her, refusing to leave her behind, even when Eleanor begged her to go ahead. Sarah led them under the dock, through shadow and pilings, away from their pursuers. Eleanor heard shouting above, running footsteps. A bullet punched into the water, 3 feet away. Dive, Sarah ordered. They dove. The water was black, filthy, impossible to see through. Eleanor's chest felt like it would explode. Just when she thought she'd have to surface, consequences be damned, Maya pulled her up in the shadow of a massive container ship. Almost there, Maya whispered. Almost there, Grandma. Stay with me. Another 100 yards. Eleanor moved on instinct alone. Her body beyond thought, beyond pain. She existed in a timeless space where only the next stroke mattered. Then hands were grabbing her, pulling her up onto a wooden platform. Not attackers. These people wore tactical gear with FBI emblazoned across their chests. We've got them, someone shouted into a radio. Civilians secure! Eleanor collapsed onto solid ground, vomiting water, unable to do anything but breathe. Maya was beside her, also gasping, also alive. Sarah was already up, coordinating with the agents, her professional mask back in place. The attackers, Sarah demanded. 4 in custody, 2 escaped. We're searching the area. Marcus Steele? Not among them. We're tracking his phone now. He won't get far. Eleanor felt Maya's hand find hers. They lay there together, soaked, bleeding, traumatized, alive. A commotion at the end of the dock made Eleanor lift her head. A black SUV screeched to a stop, and Alexander Steele burst out, not waiting for his security detail. He looked like hell, unshaven, clothes rumpled, eyes wild with fear. Maya! He was running. Maya! Maya pushed herself up, swaying, and then he was there, crushing her against him, his hands frantically checking her for injuries, his voice breaking as he repeated her name over and over. I'm okay, Maya sobbed into his chest. We're okay. We made it. Alexander's eyes found Eleanor over Maya's head. In them, Eleanor saw gratitude, relief, and a promise. This will never happen again. Is it over? Eleanor managed to ask. It's over. Alexander's voice was rough. Marcus is being arrested as we speak. The entire board is in federal custody. The evidence I provided, it wasn't just about the arms smuggling. It was money laundering, fraud, conspiracy to commit murder. They'll spend the rest of their lives in prison. The Thorntons? Eleanor had to know. Alexander's expression hardened. I had my people look into them. The evidence of their threats against Maya, against you, I've delivered it all to the authorities. They'll face charges too. You're free, both of you. Finally, completely free. Eleanor felt something break inside her. A wall she'd built 3 years ago, brick by brick, terror by terror. She began to cry, great heaving sobs she couldn't control. Maya pulled away from Alexander and wrapped her arms around her grandmother. It's over, Grandma. It's really over. 3 weeks later, Eleanor stood in a garden. Not just any garden. The private garden of Alexander's estate. 20 acres of manicured beauty on the coast. Maya ran through it just like she had as a child, her laughter echoing off marble fountains. her summer dress bright against the green. Alexander walked beside her, his hand in hers, his face transformed by happiness. Eleanor watched from the terrace, a cup of real coffee in her hands. Expensive, perfect coffee. Not the shelter's burnt swill. She wore new clothes that fit properly. She'd seen a doctor who'd been appalled at her untreated conditions, and was now monitoring her blood pressure, her arthritis, all the small ways poverty had ravaged her body. "Your suite is ready, Mrs. Chen." Eleanor turned to find Sarah, now officially employed as head of security for the estate. In 3 weeks, the woman had become something like a friend. "I'm not sure I'll ever get used to having a suite," Eleanor admitted. "You saved his life," Sarah said simply. "He'd give you a palace if you asked." "I don't want a palace, I just want Maya to be happy." They both looked at the young couple in the garden. Alexander had stopped running, and now he was on one knee, pulling a small box from his pocket. "Oh," Eleanor breathed. Even from this distance, she could see Maya's hands fly to her mouth, could see her nodding emphatically, could see Alexander slip the ring onto her finger before standing and spinning her in a circle, both of them laughing. "Too fast?" Sarah asked quietly. Eleanor considered. By conventional standards, yes. They'd known each other barely 2 months, but they'd been forged together in blood and bullets, in trust and terror. Sometimes love didn't need time. Sometimes it just needed truth. "No," Eleanor said. "Not too fast, just right." Maya came running up the terrace stairs, the diamond on her finger, catching the sunlight, her face incandescent with joy. "Grandma, he asked! He really asked!" Eleanor opened her arms, and Maya flew into them. This young woman who'd saved her in that harbour, who'd refused to leave her behind, who'd driven them through hell because love demanded it. "I'm so happy for you, little bird," Eleanor whispered. "So very happy." Alexander approached more slowly, respectful of the moment. When he reached them, he met Eleanor's eyes. "I know it's fast," he said, "but I also know I want to spend the rest of my life making her happy, making both of you safe and happy. If you'll let me." Eleanor studied him, this man who'd been a stranger bleeding out in an alley, who'd become her patient, who'd transformed into her granddaughter's great love. She thought of the promises he'd made and kept, the way he'd eliminated every threat, the grand style in which he'd returned for them, just as he'd sworn he would. "On one condition," Eleanor said. "Anything." "You let me perform the wedding ceremony." Eleanor smiled at their shocked expressions. "I was ordained years ago to marry a colleague. The license is still valid. If you're going to do this, you're going to do it with my blessing." Literally, Maya burst into fresh tears. Alexander's eyes were suspiciously bright as he nodded. "It would be an honor, Eleanor, truly." 6 months later, Eleanor stood before 200 guests in the estate's garden, now winter bare but strung with 10,000 lights that turned twilight into magic. Maya wore a dress that cost more than their van had been worth, looking like something from a fairy tale. Alexander wore a tuxedo and an expression of reverent joy. Eleanor's hands shook only slightly as she opened the ceremony book. "Dearly beloved," she began, and her voice carried clear and strong across the assembled crowd. "We are gathered here to celebrate a love that began in darkness and chose light, that began in fear and chose courage, that began with a stranger's kindness and became something eternal." She looked at Maya, at this brave young woman who'd driven them into a harbour to save their lives. "Maya, when you were born, I held you and promised to protect you from every harm in this world. I failed at that promise more times than I can count. But you never needed my protection as much as I thought. You had your own strength all along. Then to Alexander. You crashed into our lives, covered in blood, on death's door, and somehow became the best thing that ever happened to us. You kept your promises when keeping them meant war. You came back in grand style, just as you said you would. But more than that, you saw my granddaughter, really saw her, when the world had tried to make her invisible. Eleanor closed the book. She didn't need it anymore. Love isn't about convenience or safety or doing things the proper way. Love is about seeing someone drowning and choosing to dive in, even when you can barely swim yourself. It's about trust when trust seems impossible. It's about believing in grand styles and impossible promises. She smiled through tears. You two have already survived more than most couples face in a lifetime. The ceremony is just paperwork at this point. The crowd laughed softly. Alexander Steele, do you take Maya Chen to be your wife? To love and protect, to honor and cherish for all your days? I do. His voice was absolutely certain. Maya Chen, do you take Alexander Steele to be your husband? To love and challenge? To support and inspire? For all your days? I do. Maya was crying, smiling, radiant. Then by the power vested in me, and with more joy than I can express, I pronounce you husband and wife. Alexander, kiss your bride before I change my mind about letting you have her. The crowd erupted in laughter and applause as Alexander pulled Maya close and kissed her, neither of them caring about the 200 witnesses, lost in their own perfect moment. Eleanor stepped back, letting them have their spotlight, and felt a hand slip into hers. Sarah, who'd become her constant companion, her friend, perhaps even something more as the months had unfolded. You did good, Sarah murmured. We all did good, Eleanor corrected. We all survived. Later, after the dinner and the dancing, after the speeches and the cake, Eleanor found herself alone on the terrace, looking out over the garden where she'd first watched these two fall, completely in love. Alexander appeared beside her, having escaped his own reception for a moment. Thank you, he said quietly, for everything, for saving my life, for trusting me with Maya, for giving us your blessing. Thank you for proving me wrong, Eleanor replied. I thought all wealthy people were the same, cruel, self-serving. You showed me I was letting old wounds blind me to new possibilities. Not all of us are good, Alexander said honestly. But not all of us are bad either. Money doesn't determine character. Choices do. You taught me that. I taught you. You were a renowned surgeon who gave up everything to save Maya. You lived in a van, she treated people for free, survived on almost nothing, and you never lost your humanity. Never lost your ability to show compassion, even to a stranger bleeding out in your alley. He met her eyes. You taught me what real wealth looks like, and it has nothing to do with money. Eleanor felt tears threaten again. You're going to make me cry at your own wedding. Good. You've earned the right to cry for joy instead of fear. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching through the French doors as Maya danced with her new husband, her laughter floating out into the winter night. Promise me something, Eleanor said. Anything. When I'm gone, and I'm 84, it will be sooner rather than later. Take care of her. Not because she needs taking care of, but because everyone deserves someone who'll dive into dark waters with them. Alexander's jaw tightened. You're not going anywhere for a long time. My doctors are the best. Alexander, Eleanor touched his arm. We both know the truth. I'm grateful for every moment I've been given, especially these last months. But when my time comes, I need to know she'll be okay. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, she'll be okay, but it won't be because I take care of her. It will be because we take care of each other. The way you and she always have. That's the real lesson you taught us both. Eleanor nodded, satisfied. She watched Maya twirl across the dance floor, young and alive and finally free from fear, from poverty, from the shadows they'd lived in for 3 years. The homeless woman who'd rescued a stranger from a gunshot wound had found her way home. And the billionaire who'd been dying in an alley had found something more valuable than his empire. He'd found love, real and true, and built on a foundation of trust earned in the darkest moments. Come on, Eleanor said, taking Alexander's arm. Let's go dance with your bride before she thinks we're out here plotting something. Are we plotting something? Eleanor smiled. Always. That's what family does. They returned to the celebration together, to the music and light, to Maya's delighted surprise, as her grandmother and her husband swept her into a 3-way embrace on the dance floor. The guests applauded, cameras flashed, and Eleanor Chen, former surgeon, former homeless woman, current grandmother, and wedding officiant, felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Perfect, uncomplicated happiness. The story that had begun with gunfire in a dark alley ended with laughter in a bright garden. And if that wasn't a miracle worth believing in, Eleanor thought, she didn't know what was. Sometimes the greatest treasures are found in the darkest places. Sometimes the most valuable gifts are wrapped in blood and fear. And sometimes the person you save ends up saving you right back. This is the story of Eleanor, Maya, and Alexander. 3 people who learned that family isn't defined by blood or wealth, but by the choice to stand together when the whole world seems determined to tear you apart. They survive the darkness. They love over fear. And they built something beautiful from the ashes of their broken pasts. That's not just a happy ending, that's a triumph. If this story touched you, don't leave without showing some love. Hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your support keeps these powerful stories alive.